Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is JB Knows. And in this channel, we talk about everything from finance, purpose, and perspective, all from a lens of life coaching with the end goal of having a better life, having a better quality and fulfilled life. So in this video, I want to talk about Dave Ramsey's 7 baby steps. I know these can be a little controversial. I know millions of people follow Dave Ramsey. Um, so I'm going to go through the 7 baby steps today and kind of, how I approach money management, finances, and what I think about, his baby steps along the way. So again, if you like the content, please subscribe to my channel. So the baby step number one is saving a $1,000 starter emergency fund. And I really think you have to look at your finances. I think as I've listened to Dave Ramsey for some years, he has a lot of good content. Check out some of his shows, and he has a show where people call in and talk about their situation, and he gives them advice and various things. So I've heard about these baby steps for some years now. I think some of them are a little bit outdated, and I think this first baby step is one that is, right. I think the concept of this $1,000 emergency fund for Dave Ramsey is around what would cover most basic expenses, a car repair, a medical expense, maybe something that you have to fix around the house that's not like a major appliance that you might finance anyway, right? $1,000 being enough for that. And I really think that depends on your situation. If you have an older home and things come up very often, if your car is paid off and maybe it's older and needs consistent repairs, if you have a high deductible, right? Whether it be an insurance deductible for your medical insurance at your job, whether it be if you're a homeowner and your homeowner's insurance policy or your car insurance policy. I do like the concept of saving as much as your highest deductible is, right? Because I think the challenge with the starting emergency fund of only $1,000 is that anything that comes up in and beyond that, people tend to charge on their credit card. And so I think the starting emergency fund should be more than $1,000, right? And again, that could vary based on the person, right? I've heard some folks say as much as your highest deductible. I've heard some folks say try to get 1 month's worth of take-home pay reserved, right? I think the thought is some kind of momentum of saving to start. So you need to have some dollar amount in there, right? But I think $1,000 could be too low, but it really depends on your age, your circumstances, your situation. If you live at home with your parents or you maybe rent out a room and expenses don't come up that are more than $1,000, maybe that is a good start. But I would say kind of look at your own situation and make that adjustment, right? The second step is to pay off all debt except your home. And specifically, Dave recommends that you do the debt snowball option. And there's the debt snowball, and then there's the debt avalanche payment method or payoff method. And the debt snowball method is around kind of looking at all of your debts minus your house and starting with the least expensive bill or the debt with the smallest amount and paying that off first. And the goal there is to get some momentum around paying off debt. The avalanche, I think, is looking at the highest interest rate across all your debts and starting with that debt first. So it might be the highest interest rate. It could be the highest balance as well, right? So some people say if you take off too much, then you can chew. Maybe you don't pay anything off trying to pay off something too large. It takes too long. So the snowball gets you some momentum, right? Around like, hey, let me pay off my smallest debt. Now I feel good about paying something off. Now I'll go to the second thing, right? And that's what Dave recommends. And I agree with baby step number 2, right? I mean, whether you use the snowball or the avalanche, like whatever works for you, right? I think the key is to try not to accumulate debt. The key is to have some regimen of saving, right? So you get that $1,000. Dave would recommend once you get that $1,000, all your money go towards debt. I disagree with that. But it's also because I don't agree that all debt is bad. So I mean, my view is a little different from Dave in that regard. But I do believe like the debt snowball can be a good method to pay down debt. Step 3, baby step, is to build that 3 to 6 month emergency fund. And the reason why they give you a range of 3 to 6 months is because they want people to kind of look at their industry and the reality of like how long would you be down. So say you got laid off, are you in a popular industry where in 3 months you could find a job, right? I would argue in this economy, it's very hard for anybody, right? Unless you have a massive network of people, which I talked about the importance of a network in one of my other videos. Um, but I would say that, you know, you want to look at your circumstances, right? If you get a 3 month emergency fund built, and again, that 3 month emergency fund could either be 3 months of your take home pay, which is more expensive, or it could be just 3 months of your monthly reoccurring expenses. So your rent or your mortgage, car payments, loans, any kind of debt that you might have on a reoccurring basis that you need to be able to pay every month, 3 months of that, right? So again, if you have a big network, if you're in industry that maybe has a negative unemployment rate, again, right now it seems like everything is kind of crazy. So you can kind of balance that out. We're kind of building out that emergency fund. I think that emergency fund is critical, right? Because again, it builds up that momentum of saving. It also gives you just some ability to kind of breathe, to know that like, hey, if something happens with my job, I'll be okay for a couple months. And maybe you're fortunate enough where if something were to happen to your job, you get a severance package, you can collect unemployment, things that would add to your savings in the meantime too, while you find another job. So I agree. 3 to 6 month emergency fund I think is very important for anybody to have. Step 4 is investing 15% of your household income into your retirement. Again, this is where I disagree with Dave. First of all, I think what you want to do is max out retirement if you possibly can, right? Depending on your income, 15% might be too much, right? But if you look at the average income, 15% is still, I think, under. If the average household income is $75,000 as of this video, 15% of that is probably maybe 12,000 or something. Just doing it rough off the top of my head. So don't quote me exactly on that number. But that's not quite in a 401k as an example, the $23,000 max that you have today. But assuming you have room to do that and you can comfortably do that. But where I disagree with Dave is I think that you should always invest in retirement, no matter how much debt you have, no matter what your financial situation is. If you look at the folks that have built wealth, which most have built wealth through real estate, owning their properties, or through the 401k. There's more 401k millionaires now than we've ever had in American history. A big part of that is the ability to let that interest compound and grow for years. The longer you let that money grow, the longer your time horizon is, the more money you accumulate, right? And so Dave says, baby step 2, pay off all of your debt after that $1,000, right? Pay off your debt, then build the emergency fund. And until you have those 3 things in place, hold off on retirement. But again, I disagree with Dave. I think your retirement is critical, right? And in emergencies, people have taken money out of their retirement, right? I had a rental property once some years back that I wanted to sell, and the tenants that I was renting the house out to took money out of their 401k to buy the house from me. They didn't have a down payment saved. They took that money out of their 401k, borrowed from themselves, right? Which a lot of people do. A lot of people use their 401ks to buy their property, right? But they had to have money in there to start with, right? And so I think that, again, if you're lucky enough to have a good job that offers a 401k, or if you make under the threshold to put money into a Roth IRA, you should try to put money into those from day one if you possibly can, right? Even a Roth IRA people use as a savings account anyway, right? Because your Roth IRA means that you've already paid taxes on that money, so the money's already been taxed, right? So there is penalties of the interest that you make on it if you're under, I think, 59 and a half. But people use their Roth IRA as their emergency fund all the time, right? Because they earn all that interest and they've already paid taxes on that money, unlike a 401k. So again, whatever percentage you decide to do, I think you want to get as close to you as you can to maxing out your retirement whenever possible. But I just feel like you should always contribute to it. Step 5 is, save money for your kids' college funds, right? So again, if you have children, right, you might want to put money away into a 529 plan or something to that effect. I do that for my sons. I have a 529 plan for my boys, but then I also have a child's stock account, a brokerage account for my boys too. And so I think it's important just to start saving and trying to invest whenever you can, right? So I do agree with the college fund, just something, whether it's actually in a 529 because that has to be used for education, or you put it into another investment vehicle if you can, right? I think that's good to do for your children if you have children, right? Step 6 is paying off your home early. This can be controversial, right? Because some people have very low interest rates, and some would argue if you can earn more interest in other investments than the rate you pay on your house, you should drag that out as long as you possibly can. I think my personal thought around it is if you can pay off your house before you retire, right? I think that's one of the biggest advantages. Well, there's a lot of advantages to home ownership, but if you look at the rate of how rent has increased over the past 30 years, no matter what city you're in now, if you look at what rent is, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom today versus 30 years ago, you don't want to be stuck paying rent prices in 30 years. That's a big advantage to owning a home to begin with, right? But you also don't want to have a big mortgage payment in your retirement years, right? There's going to be property taxes and insurance that never go away. There's going to be repairs and things that come up, but it'll make it easier to retire if your biggest bill is paid off, right? So I do agree with paying off your mortgage, right? And he has this later in his list, right? So it's step number 6. So he's not saying aggressively pay off your mortgage anyway, right? But again, some people argue, drag it out as long as you possibly can. But again, I wouldn't want the stress of a mortgage when I'm in my retirement years. And then again, step 7 is kind of build wealth and giving, right? And giving could be given to different causes, different charitable donations, right? If you've really got to the point where you have, disposable income where you've maxed out your 3 to 6 month emergency fund, you have retirement that you're investing, some percentage in, you've paid off all of your high interest rate debt. Like if all of those things are operating on all cylinders and you still have good income, it is good to give, right? If you still have disposable income, you still want to be able to give back whenever possible. So, that's my view on the 7 baby steps. I'd love to get some commentary. Please let me know if you agree or disagree with any of the 7 baby steps. I do think foundationally it's good to have goals and good to set those goals, and Dave Ramsey gives a good framework for that, but I just don't think that everything should be linear, right? So anyway, hope you like this content. If you do, please like, subscribe, share on my channel, and look forward to another update on the next video. Thanks.